Ever pondered how the human race transitioned from nomadic hunter-gatherers to settled farmers? The story of agriculture, my friends, is one of the most pivotal chapters in the grand narrative of human history. It's a tale that begins around 10,000 years before Christ, during a transformative era known as the Neolithic Revolution. The Neolithic Revolution was a time of dramatic change for our ancestors. Imagine, if you will, the leap from a lifestyle of constant movement, chasing the ebb and flow of seasons and animal migrations, to one of stability and permanence. This was the time when humans first began to domesticate plants and animals. Instead of solely relying on what nature provided, they started to influence their environment, selectively breeding plants and animals for desirable traits. The wild grains they once gathered were now being cultivated, giving birth to the first crops. The animals they once hunted were now being herded, the genesis of livestock farming. This shift didn't happen overnight, nor did it happen everywhere at once. It's fascinating to note that the advent of agriculture occurred independently in various parts of the world. One of the earliest and most notable regions was the Fertile Crescent, an arc of rich and well-watered land spanning from the Nile Valley through the Levant and into Mesopotamia. Simultaneously, thousands of miles away in East Asia, another agricultural revolution was underway. Here, the domestication of rice and millet marked the beginning of a farming culture that would shape the continent's history for millennia to come. These early farming communities laid the groundwork for the sedentary societies that followed. With a stable source of food, populations grew, leading to the formation of villages, then cities, and eventually civilizations. The dawn of agriculture was indeed a drastic shift, setting the stage for the development of civilization as we know it. So the next time you enjoy a meal, remember, you're not just savoring a dish, but partaking in a tradition that's been thousands of years in the making. So how did our ancestors manage to cultivate crops without modern machinery or scientific knowledge? Let's take a step back in time, to an era when the land was tilled by hand and the seeds were sown with hope. One of the earliest techniques used by our ancestors was the slash and burn method. This was a two-step process where they would first cut down the vegetation in a particular area, then set it on fire. The resulting ash enriched the soil with nutrients, providing a fertile ground for crops. In regions with uneven terrain, our ancestors developed terrace farming. They carved out flat strips of land, creating step-like terraces on the hillside. This not only prevented soil erosion, but also allowed water to flow from one level to the next, ensuring each terrace received adequate irrigation. Speaking of irrigation, our forebears were ingenious in their methods. They created canals and levees to divert water from rivers and lakes to their fields. In drier regions, they dug wells and used animals or simple machines to draw water. These primitive yet effective irrigation systems were the lifelines of their crops. Now let's talk about what they grew. Wheat, barley and rice were among the earliest crops cultivated by man. These grains were hardy, versatile, and could be stored for long periods, making them ideal for early agrarian societies. They formed the staple diet of these societies, shaping their cultures and economies in profound ways. But crops weren't the only focus of ancient agriculture. The domestication of animals played a significant role too. Animals like cattle, goats and sheep provided milk, meat and hides. They were also used for ploughing fields and transporting goods, making them an integral part of farming. These practices may seem rudimentary compared to today's technologically advanced farming methods. But remember, these were the days when the human spirit, guided by observation and intuition, tamed the wild and coaxed the earth to yield its bounty. Despite the lack of technology, these ingenious methods laid the foundation for modern agriculture. As centuries passed, how did farming adapt to changing times and advancing technology? The Middle Ages were a period of considerable growth and change in the world of agriculture. The heavy plough, a monumental invention, broke the ground more effectively than its predecessors, enabling farmers to cultivate more land and produce more food. This was a real game changer in areas with rich, heavy soil that was previously too challenging to work. Another significant advancement was the horse collar. Before its introduction, harnesses would choke horses when they pulled heavy loads, limiting their usefulness in farming. The horse collar was designed to distribute the load evenly across the horse's shoulders, providing a more humane and efficient way to utilize these animals for heavy labor. This innovation allowed for quicker ploughing and transportation of goods, which in turn led to an increase in productivity. Fast forwarding to the 18th century, we find ourselves in the midst of the agricultural revolution. This period saw a flurry of inventions that further revolutionized farming. The seed drill, introduced by Jethro Tull, was one of these significant breakthroughs. Before this invention, seeds were scattered by hand, a method that was inefficient and wasteful. The seed drill, on the other hand, planted seeds in neat rows and at the correct depth, ensuring better germination and crop yield. Another key invention of this period was the threshing machine. It separated the grain from the stalks and husks much more quickly than could be done by hand. This meant farmers could process their crops faster and more efficiently, leading to an increase in available food and a decrease in prices. These innovations not only improved efficiency, but also drastically changed the rural landscape and society. Farming was no longer a small-scale subsistence activity. It became a large-scale commercial operation, laying the groundwork for the modern agricultural industry we know today. The Middle Ages to the Industrial Revolution was indeed a transformative era in the history of agriculture, setting the stage for further advancements and innovations. In the blink of an eye, we've entered the 20th century. How has agriculture transformed in the modern era? Agriculture, once a labor-intensive, back-breaking endeavor, has undergone a striking metamorphosis in the last century. The dawn of modern agriculture can be marked by the mechanization of farming. The introduction of tractors and combines has revolutionized the way we farm. These machines have not only increased efficiency, but also drastically reduced the manual labor involved in farming. A task that once took several days and numerous workers can now be accomplished in a matter of hours. And then came the mid-20th century's Green Revolution. This was a period of remarkable agricultural innovation aimed at combating global hunger. High-yielding varieties of wheat and rice were developed. Fertilizers and pesticides were used more extensively. Irrigation was improved. As a result, crop yields soared, and many nations which were once heavily reliant on food imports became self-sufficient. But the story of modern agriculture doesn't end there. In the late 20th century, we saw the advent of genetically modified crops. Scientists have been able to manipulate the DNA of plants to create breeds that are resistant to pests, diseases, and extreme weather conditions. These genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, have the potential to increase food production and reduce the use of chemical pesticides. However, the use of GMOs has not been without controversy. Critics argue that we don't fully understand the long-term effects of these modifications on our health and the environment. Proponents counter that GMOs are a crucial tool in the fight against world hunger. This debate continues to rage on, reflecting the complexities and challenges of modern agriculture. So, in the span of a century, agriculture has undergone a transformation that our ancestors could only dream of. From horse-drawn ploughs to GPS-guided tractors, farming has indeed come a long way. As we stand on the brink of a new era, how will agriculture adapt to the challenges of the future? This is a question that scientists, farmers, and policymakers around the world are grappling with as we speak. Today, agriculture faces a host of challenges. Climate change, with its erratic weather patterns and rising temperatures, threatens traditional farming practices. Meanwhile, rapid population growth is putting pressure on food production like never before. We need to produce more food, but we need to do it sustainably, without further damaging our planet. So, how do we square this circle? The answer lies in the relentless spirit of innovation that has characterized agriculture from its inception. Let's consider a few potential solutions that are already being explored. Firstly, precision farming. This involves using cutting-edge technology to make farming more efficient and less wasteful. Think drones that can monitor crop health from the sky, or GPS-guided tractors that can plant seeds with pinpoint accuracy. Precision farming allows us to do more with less, maximizing yield while minimizing environmental impact. Next, vertical farming. This innovative approach involves growing food in vertically stacked layers, often in controlled environments. Vertical farming could be a game changer in urban areas, where space is at a premium. It could also help us adapt to climate change, as it allows for farming in regions where traditional agriculture is not feasible. Lastly, lab-grown food. This might sound like science fiction, but it's closer to reality than you might think. Scientists are already growing meat in labs, and it's only a matter of time before lab-grown food becomes a common part of our diets. This could help us meet the increasing demand for food without further straining our planet's resources. In conclusion, the challenges facing agriculture are formidable, but they are not insurmountable. As we continue to innovate and adapt, the future of agriculture promises to be as fascinating as its past.